So I'm working on the solar for the DC well pump. So I've got this pole. Got 3 panels mounted so far. Got one more to go. 180 watts total. And I'll put 2 of these together because these are 12 volt panels. I'll make them 24 volts. And it's at 2.4 amps. If you can see that little tag. 45 watts. It's at 12 volts at 2.4 amps. I wire these 2 together. That'll be 24 volts at 2.4 amps. Then I'll have these other 2 wired together. That'll be 24 volts at 2.4 amps. Then I'll wire these pairs together, and that will make 24 volts at 4.8 amps. The pump needs to run about 4.5 amps. Anywhere from 24 to 36 volts. It likes to be at 30. So I'm going to be on the low end. However, the pump does not need to run at full power. It's not running down more than 50 feet. So I'm hoping that I'll have the power pretty much optimized on a sunny day for the pump. I don't know how it's going to do on a cloudy day. May have to add some more power to it, but we'll see. And these are old panels, just using what I already had. Turns out that one of these 320 watt, they're a little just too much for the pump. But I have the option of wiring one in later. I'm going to run the wire down here. I'm going to have a pump controller mounted to this pole. Pole's about 14 feet tall. So chickens scratched the dirt back in my hole, and then the rain washed the... I'll have to dig that back out. But anyway, I'm going to stand that pole up. And then it's right next. The wire's going to go 50 feet of wire right to the control box. However deep that'll let me get. My pump down there, my static water is like 19 feet. So it's 100, and it's a really deep hole. It just, the water's pushing up through the rock pretty high up. There's no groundwater in it, but it's still, my deep well is only 20 feet deep. That's the way it works out. It's pretty nice. Doesn't have a lot of flow, but it's never gone dry either. So if we pump it out slow, we'll probably never go dry. And this is just an old satellite dish. There's quite a bit of concrete there, so when I stand it up, hopefully that'll help it. And I welded, don't look too closely at my weld, I welded a old carport pipe right in this other one here. Then I'm going to put a guy wire the end of that fence rail pipe. That's rail pipe. Just it's a little bit older, it's thicker than the stuff you buy these days, but it's galvanized. And then I made those straps. I got the old fence straps, bent them, rebent them, and made my mounting hardware out of those because I didn't have what I needed, so I just made what I needed. And it's just a regular old steel U-bolt to bolt to that top plate of that old carport pole. And the hope is that this pole will clear those panels. Get it up high enough. Here's a little outlet for my well pump. This is a 75 PSI bypass valve. So the pump's going to run, and it's going to pump the water all the way around the corner up to the tank. When the tank gets full, that shut-off valve, the float valve will shut. The system will begin to pressurize. When that happens, and when it hits 75 PSI, it's going to squirt out through that. I'm going to take that down, and I'm going to make a little waterfall with it later. So we got a break in the temperature today, so I am going to work on this. Oh my goodness, what a mess this untended greenhouse has become. Got weeds taking over, Spiny Amaranth, some Lambsquarters, which is good. I got that Virginia Smartweed. I got a ton of, I got some Locoweed in here, poison. I got Nightshade, supposedly poison. So I'm gonna try to weed this. This is where all those tomatoes are where my chickens got in here in the winter and scratched out my trays and scattered my seed, and now I got this tomatoes growing wild. So I'm gonna try to string those up. I was going to try to transplant them, but I'm just going to scatter them out throughout this whole greenhouse as they vine. I'm just going to vine them all over the place. I'm waiting for this corn to dry out so I can harvest it. The corn is probably not going to be good enough to eat. It didn't do well in here. The uneven pollination, uneven watering. My little valve got broken. I never fixed it. I watered by hand and it just wasn't on time. The squash is very happy though. I mean, my goodness. But I'm going to try to beat back this stuff so we can get in here and at least harvest something. Try to get some old some weeds out and get the aisle back. So it's going to take me a little bit, but make this a little bit more manageable so we can get something out of it. It's been untended, so I got to make it right. So I'll show you a picture later when it's a little bit more cleaned up. I'll probably harvest some squash and beans out of here too. Alright, I'm working on this greenhouse. Now what I have is this little spot where the chickens got in through that door right there when the wind blew it open a little bit. Didn't have a real latch on it. They scratched out my trays, and now my tomatoes, there's a whole bunch of seed in one spot. So I don't know what the variety is, and I'm going to just go ahead and not transplant them. I'm going to go ahead and try to get them off the floor, like, see. But what I'm doing, and there's a lot of videos, a lot of information, but I'll just show you what I'm doing. You get the main vine, and I'm going to try to string them wide across the greenhouse and then bring them up. See how all those roots are on there? This is what tomato vines will do if they hit the ground. So I'm going to try to encourage that vine to go horizontally, and then I'm going to take it up vertically. This one, the main vine actually died on it. You see that? This little thing coming out right here is a sucker. This right here. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it just for now. Normally that would come off. This is a sucker on the side here. It's off the main thing. But that's my life right now. The life of the vine, I mean. Oh my goodness, it looks broken. Pretty weak. My goodness. That is pretty broken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. I would normally leave something on that vine, but it's probably going to die anyway. I'm going to take this thing right here. See all those roots? I'm going to plant that out in my garden. And that will turn into a plant. All this right here is stuff that I've already trimmed off. Suckers. So I'll try to find another one. Let me move mine. Alright, here's one here. See, here's your main vine. Here's your branch, your leaf. That's what you want to leave. This little thing coming out of the middle. See that? I'm going to take that off. I'm going to plant that out in the garden. This is a lot faster than seedlings. Now you can see this vine here. I'm going to take that flower off. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and take that sucker off right there. Broken leaf there. Now I'm going to cut this off right here at the main vine. There's another plant right there. So I'm going to string this thing once I get all the suckers off of it, if I don't break it, because it's so soft stemmed. So I'm going to try to spread that out and then bring it on up. But we have plenty of season left, so I don't mind sacrificing right now to get more later. So I'm going to lay these in the dirt and get them rooted and then spread them out, because they all can't grow in this one spot. They're all kind of concentrated right here. I'm going to spread them out and then tie strings up and grow them up on the greenhouse. That way I can get in here and weed and harvest my whatever beans came up, and squash and so forth. You see a squash back in there. So, right now I just got to kind of address all of them being in one spot and spread them out so I can actually work on them. It's just a tangled mess, and that's giving me so much for my garden. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working this, and then I'll show you when I plant some. See, this is a sucker here. It's beautiful. And it's got all that fruit trying to start on there, so we would pluck all those flowers off. And I would bury quite a bit of this. I'd pull these lower leaves off here, branches, cut them off. Then I would bury as deeply as I could this stem. And it has a pretty good chance of survival, as long as I get it in there pretty quick. So I'm going to thin out all these tomatoes and then try to get them spread out a little bit. And we should get a great harvest in here. So I'll update you on that when I get a little bit more progress. Well, it's kind of a mess, but I got to start on it. You can see where I kind of thin these tomato vines out, and it's got them spread out. Tied a few up here and there, trying to spread them out. I will tie them up, let them grow vertically, kind of sort out the mess a little bit. I did break quite a few vines trying to sort them out, so that's my pile. I'm going to go try to put all that in the garden. Show you how I do that when I get out there. And I got a few green beans out of the deal, a few squash, and it's just, these squash are really taken over, and I've got watermelon up there. It's going to be fighting it out with the squash, I think. You have some issues growing in a greenhouse for sure, but then you also have some advantages. Squash are very happy in here. We'll see how long before the bugs get in here on it. I'm not sure I can keep them out or not. They can just crawl in, sniff their way in, and crawl in. Maybe by the time the corn dries out, I could pick that, get it out of here. Maybe I'll get a few green beans out of it. The ducks took care of quite a few. Smashed a lot of stuff when they were in here. And it's also weak stemmed. It's just not getting the right amount of breeze to encourage strong plants. Everything is just super tender, like those tomatoes, man. They're just super fragile. I'm gonna go plant these suckers, and we'll see how these tomatoes fared after being sorted out. So I imagine I'm not going to plant anything. I'm just going to encourage these tomatoes to vine in all the empty spots as I get them. Maybe I'll have the watermelon and the tomatoes left. And the squash for as long as it can, and some of those beans will probably hang in there, and I'll get some beans off of there. It's kind of hard to get in there and harvest, so Three Sisters is not working great for me. I think Three Sisters works best if you can kind of harvest everything at the same time. And the tomatoes change the dynamic, and the squash is pretty far behind the tomatoes. The corn is supposed to be about the same. So I'm just going to let this corn dry out and then get the seed off of it. That's the thing I'm most interested in. We're not going to get to eat any of it, but we'll give it a little longer to dry out and get whatever seed we can, and we'll regroup on the corn. That's it for now. I'll show you how I plant these tomato suckers. Here's some of these beds I was working on. Carrots, spinach. Spinach is getting kind of sad. Put in some Swiss chard, which made it. I'm surprised. Didn't harden it off or anything. And then the peppers are obviously starting to love the heat. They're doing fine. The basil's doing fine. Some of those overwintered peppers, not really getting the kind of leaves on them I hoped. So I'm not sure they're going to make it, but these young ones will. The basil looks happy. The green beans are coming in. There's some more of those overwintered peppers. Looks like I'm actually getting a few bananas on there. Banana peppers seem to be the most agreeable to grow. It's just weird. Some of the other ones. So I'm going to work on putting some of those tomato in here, just because I'm going to be in here watering this other stuff. So I'm going to just move these pots. And this is the corn I transplanted. It just did very poorly. It's nothing but weeds. So I'm just going to take all this out. There's some Brassica of some sort. It's going to seed. I'm still going to yank it out here. It's just so infested. I'm just going to take that out, feed it to the chickens, get it out of the way. And there's my tomatoes. So definitely June, and the bugs, just they're coming out in force. So I'll probably just harvest all this stuff and give it directly to the chickens just to end the pest cycle, because I don't need the seed that bad. It's just kind of too late for the brassicas. So I'm just going to yank them out. Broccoli or whatever it is, it's just an infestation of bad bugs. Stupid cabbage moths right there. Part of the problem. So I'm going to clean all this out, and then I'll show you how I plant these tomatoes in this area. All right, I'm out here clearing this for the tomatoes. It's just starting to wilt. Need to hurry up. This aisle stays pretty wet. It gets dry, but then it stays wet. And I'm noticing that the vegetation that grows in there is soft-stemmed, not really deep-rooted, not really hard to manage, except for that yellow dock. But a lot of this stuff is pretty soft-stemmed and easy to pull. Stuff on the drier ridges is a lot more of a thug. You got horse nettle, and you've got spiny amaranth, which is a total thug. Spiny, you can't get it out. It's just tough stuff. And horse nettle's painful to pull if you don't have gloves. I mean, they push their way in and take over. I don't like those thug plants. And growing the wild lettuce there on purpose, it's like 7 feet tall. It's a medicinal, but it's also kind of a takeover kind of thug. So my plan is to pull all this stuff out, feed it to the cows, yank as many roots as I can. Then I'm going to rototill this, put the fertility back up on the mounds, and then start planting tomatoes in it. My garlic scapes, man, if you don't eat those, you should try. The more curly they are, the better. Get them before they straighten out. They get tough and stalky. I got some Egyptian onion tops there. I'm going to let them go a little longer. They're not quite. I'm going to wait for them to dry out a little bit more. I'll be a little bit more ready to plant. Then you got that horsetail, those tall things. All of the warm weather plants have a kind of different strategy. Lambsquarter acts like your friend until it drops thousands of seeds. Same with amaranth. It'll be, yeah, I'm edible. I'm not all thorny or anything. Just let me sit here and do my thing, and then it'll drop seeds. You have millions of plants to deal with. All of these warm weather plants are kind of a problem. I don't like them as much as the spring stuff, which is mostly edible. But they're just trying to do their thing and bring succession. Plants will give the cows a feast. And then I'll show you how, when I get this cleaned out, I'll show you how I plant my tomatoes. Okay, the little ducklings, little radish plant. And they're going to town on it. They'd prefer to be out there grazing on the grass, but just can't let them because they'd all be dead. But I brought them this whole thing that's got caterpillars all over it, and seeds and leaves. So they're having a good time with it.